What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to another video with me, Measureaholic. Ladies and gentlemen, Divide and Impera for Total War Roman 2 has a beta patch available. That's right, DEI is getting a brand new update, dubbed 1.2.7, and I'm here to give you guys a little brief rundown on what's going to be changing. It's not a massive update, but it's still solid, and we're going to go through some of the highlights, and I'll give you guys a very quick rundown on some of the smaller things that will be thrown in. This is just a beta though, so do keep in mind if you want to try it out for yourself, you may end up screwing with your game, especially if you're like me, use a lot of submods, so do be cautious, check out their Discord, ask for help if you're not sure. But anyway, let's jump on into it. So first off, we're looking at the new units that have been added to multiple different rosters. These are the Sacred Squadron units added to the Macedonian and the Egyptian roster. Very cool cavalry. Then we have some Linen cavalry here added to the Egyptian roster. These are Linen cataphract units, I should say. Very cool looking unit. I'm not going to go into the statistics of these units though. This is just a beta. They are subject to change, and I'll be going into more depth in their statistics in my campaign overviews I do for these factions. But Egypt also got some Nubian troops which will help them out, just some archers, well, a archer unit I should say, but very well done as always. DEI adding in a lot of variety into their troops. All of those guys look different, and the ones who are the same are fairly spread out, so not only do they look great, but there is variety in the soldiers themselves, which will help make the battles a little bit more believable, which is always welcome. Pontus gets some troops as well. Here is their new horse archer unit. This is basically a professional archer unit. They're not elite, but they're not all light and kind of raggedy, how a lot of horse archer units come off as. They're either very elite or they're very low tier. One faction that would be really good for that would be Parthia. They have a lot of very light horse archers and skirmishers, so this is a really welcome unit. In addition, Pontus also gets this swordsman unit, which is basically the poor man's Roman legionnaire. It's their answer to the Roman legions, but their armor is worse, and they're just worse all around. So they will do decent against other factions, but once you go up against Roman legionnaires, you're going to see just how outclassed they are. But they are looking very cool. Moving along though, we have the Bactrian roster. They actually get some Indian units, or the Mauryan units, added to their roster. They have a unit of archers here that we're seeing, very basic, low tier, but again, a lot of cool variety in the faces and the clothing and in the soldiers themselves. Then you also get this fairly medium tier shock unit with a massive double-handed sword with an insanely massive handle. I'm not sure where that came from, but okay, whatever, it works. Very cool shock unit that you'll be using in your Bactrian armies. There is another Bactrian shock unit that uses an axe, so this can kind of be their partners, I guess, when they're using their double-edged sword, or double-handed sword I should say. And then of course Sparta gets some units, and by units I mean just one unit, but it's very cool. It's a Ionian shock cavalry unit. They have a very long lance, but their armor is fairly low, and you can see it in their uniform. It's fairly basic. They fit into the red theme that Sparta holds though, and they look awesome. And then we also have the new Shipping Axeman. This is just given to the Royal Scythian faction, not the other ones. It is a medium tier Axeman unit. They also had some horses change some categories, but nothing too major. Very cool looking Axeman unit, and they look almost Dacian-like. But now we're going to jump onto the campaign map, where we're going to look at some of the new UI changes. In the top right hand corner of this center box here, we now have the changing capital button. We also have the population growth, the population number itself for this particular province, and then we also will have the supply tooltip bar to show you the supplies and the season and the overall fertility for that region. Very helpful, very nice and condensed, and it also has a larger population total number right underneath it. And then on the top left hand side, it also has population growth, or the province growth for that area as well. Now we're moving on though to show you guys the difference for the Nervii. They now have two cultures that they have to deal with. They are still a Celtic faction in the game's files. That is their primary culture. However, they also have Germanic cultural influence that they will have to deal with throughout the entire campaign. This basically means that they are very much like Egypt. Egypt was ruled by Hellenic overlords, but they had a lot of Egyptians living in their territory. Obviously, they were in Egypt. And so in Total War Rome 2 DEI, you have to balance your Hellenic overrulership with the Egyptian population, and that often leads to tensions rising over time. And you'll have to deal with rebellions because of it. However, here, the Nervii seem to be in a similar position where they're going to have to deal with Germanic rebellions. Whether it's really going to be as much of a pain in the butt as what the Egyptians have to deal with, we'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell, and we'll see how it gets balanced. But either way, it shows that DEI is moving in a new direction with some of the factions, trying to give them a little bit more depth, which is always welcome. The more detail, the better, I say. But anyway, those are the primary changes that I wanted to show you. I'll just go through a few of the other smaller ones quite quickly. For example, the Getae now have a change in their reforms where their 10 battle limit that they had to have with Rome now also applies to nomadic factions in addition to Rome. So if you want to get to the late tier reforms, fight the Romans, or you can fight the nomadic factions. You need 10 battles and you need 100 turns in that campaign to get those reforms kicking. The Empire Divided campaign has had a major crash fix. Initially it wasn't fixed in this beta patch, but at the time of this video, a update on January 11th occurred to the patch where it should now really fix the crash. But if you are testing, give some feedback in the Discord or on Total War Center. I'll be leaving links down below to all of that. But it should be fixed for the Empire Divided campaign, so if you're a big ED player, hopefully you will enjoy that and won't have any more issues. Some other changes occurred in the flags and the names for some of the factions that emerge. An emergent faction is basically a faction that is born from rebellion or from being liberated in the campaign. Basically, a faction that isn't there at the start of the campaign is usually referred to as an emergent faction. And so a lot of these have their new names done, they have new flags. In addition to new names, a lot of the regions and cities on the campaign map now have very more historically based names, which is very cool. For example, you may not have noticed there, but the Nervii capital that we were just looking at was no longer called Bagacum, B-A-G-A-C-U-M. That's what it previously was, but now it has a new name, so that's very much welcome. That was always a funny city to look over and assault. But anyway, there's just heaps and heaps, like dozens upon dozens of smaller fixes and adjustments. It would take far too long to go through them all, and to be honest, it doesn't necessarily need to be discussed. A lot of these will be changes that you won't notice unless you're a very kind of anal person or you're very specific and detailed in what you want to know. But for example, some different units are being changed to be recruitable from different tiers of buildings, such as the Lusitani shock infantry. They now are recruited only from a tier 3 barracks instead of earlier, so that's going to have to be a little bit more work that you're going to have to put in for them. The Getae horse archers are also recruitable from tier 4 and 3 temples. Slight change to before. There's also been some unit adjustment stats that have taken place. For example, Bassalian veteran hoplites have been altered, and generally across the board, melee cavalry has been given a little bit more attack to try and help them have a little bit more aggression. And there's just dozens of small changes like that you're probably not going to notice. But I kind of wish we did notice, because a lot of these changes show just how much care and detail is given into the mod. It's pretty mind-blowing. But basically, that's all I wanted to cover, guys. So overall, this is a solid update. It gives a lot of miscellaneous fixes and adjustments as well. It's not necessarily just about fixing bugs, it's about adjusting small aspects of gameplay to try and create a better experience for the player. Furthermore, there's even more historical accuracy or more historical authenticity being taken into account. For example, of new flags, new namings, so on and so forth. So that's very much welcome. Another very nice feature that kind of adds into that is that you now receive a better diplomatic bonus when you get a royal marriage with another faction. So if you marry one of your characters up to them, it'll help you bring ties a little bit closer. But I think the main thing that is exciting from this patch is the new units. There's quite a few of them, not a massive amount, but any kind of new addition is welcome in my opinion. But I feel like all of these units are excellent. They fit into the time period, they fit into each faction. None of them seem to be altering the balance either. Even the Spartan shock cavalry that they get. The Spartans famously really suffered when it came to the cavalry department, and in Spartan campaigns, you generally have to rely solely on mercenaries for your cavalry, so it's nice that they now have a Greek unit that they can call upon to recruit. Still doesn't mean that it's going to be easy having cavalry in your army playing as the Spartans. I should know, I'm doing a Spartan campaign right now. You can check out on my channel if you like, shameless plug. But anyway, all of these units seem to fit. They are very well done, very well detailed. None of their statistics or attributes seem to be all that game altering or game breaking. They just add a little bit more variety to a mod that already has an insane amount of variety. So hopefully they'll keep that coming. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, very short video. I just wanted to cover those brief changes with you. If you have any questions, drop them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. If I cannot, I highly recommend you check out the DI Mods Total War Center, their website, and their Discord. They are very active and they're very respondent to questions that you have. They respond quite often to feedback as well, so if you've had some suggestions, feel free to throw it at them. Just make sure you're respectful and keep in mind that these people do this insane amount of work for free. They're a very, very talented group of people, and they're doing some amazing work for nerds like us who just want to hop in the Total War and, you know, paint the map whatever color we like and do it as immersively as possible. Anyway, hats off to them. Go give them some love. I'll leave links down below to all of their various sites so you can connect with them. But anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.